So, I know I said I was on the fence about seeing this film, and if I saw it, it would probably be later in the week, but, well, luckily for you all, everybody I know happened to be working this Friday, so I had nothing to do but go to the movies. And so I saw Salt. And the verdict on this one is I am not recommending it. Now, pay attention closely. I said not recommending it. I'm not saying not to see it. Although, you might want to lean that way. Uh, yes, it's bad. It's bad, but it still might be tolerable. If this movie at all is intriguing you from the previews and you want an action fix or you want a spy fix, you could probably sit through this and be okay. If you wanted to, like me, kill an afternoon, you can sit through it as long as you've already seen Inception or The Sorcerer's Apprentice or Toy Story 3 or Despicable Me. That kind of rhymes. Uh, so yeah, it's on the bottom of the list. It's here's I will say what the biggest problem with this film is. Well, there's two big problems. But the first biggest problem is if you're familiar with how this film was originally set up, if you do some research on it, this was supposed to be a star action vehicle for Tom Cruise. It was written from the start to be a Tom Cruise film. And he dropped out of it, probably because it looked like it was just a ripoff of Mission Impossible, because there is a lot of mission. They have the face disguise pretty much right out of Mission Impossible in this film. So I'm guessing that's probably was a big factor in Tom Cruise deciding not to go with it. Uh, there was probably some other things as well, scheduling, but I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, for whatever reason, Tom Cruise dropped out of the film. Ooh, sorry there. Just drinking some of the soda that I still have, because a medium is apparently an extra large anywhere else at my movie theater. But I digress. Uh, so he dropped out, and Angelina Jolie came in on the picture. And, you can change, especially nowadays, the main character's sex. Hell, Alien, the original Alien, Ripley was originally just written as supposed to be a guy. But they changed it. And so obviously they just go back in the script and they change, a love interest from a guy to a girl, or, refer to him, or change all the hims to she's. No biggie. The problem is, since this was written to be Tom Cruise, a lot of the lines and a lot of the setups are scenes you would see Tom Cruise doing good performances. It was tailored to how he would act, because he can do this kind of crazy, not sure what the hell's going on type of acting. Angelina Jolie can't do that. I mean, there's very few actors that can kind of do that kind of crazy, fun to watch crazy. Um, Angelina Jolie always plays it very much cool and in control, or if not in control, she's sad and consolable. She really doesn't do crazy. Like I said, there's very few actors that can pull off the kind of crazy, unsure about what's going on type of situation in the acting. Tom Cruise can. So a lot of this performance comes from the fact that the movie they changed the sex, but they forgot to change that they wrote this for a particular actor. And they brought in another action actor, but she has different things. She can play cool and calculating, and there are some scenes of that, and she does okay. But every time, if once you know that this was written for Tom Cruise, you see scenes like, oh, Tom Cruise could have pulled that off great. Not that I'm not faulting Angelina Jolie's acting. This is obviously a script issue. A script issue with, they've cast a wrong type of actor. Kind of like what we saw in Predators with, Morpheus there as a nut guy. As much as I love him, he can't do crazy. Same thing here. Angelina Jolie she always plays very cool and in control. So there wasn't a good fit for her. The other problem I think with this movie is it has to do exactly with the plot, and I think this would have still been a problem even if Tom Cruise was still attached to it. It's one of these Ghosts of the Soviet Union movies, which you know dealing with the fallout from the collapse of the Soviet Union. The only problem is we're about almost we're technically 17 years, but it's essentially 20 years. It's a little too late, I think, for this to feel relevant. This kind of Soviet agents still hiding out in America, completely active, ready to bring down the Americans. This stuff was popular, and you could pull it off in the 90s especially, because it only had been a few years since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now it's like 20 years. It's like a big plot hole. Like, why didn't they do this sooner? This doesn't appear to be the opportune time to be pulling this type of operation off. Doesn't really make any sense. I'm not sure. Maybe this script had been floating around for a while. I didn't do an intensive amount of research on it. I can try pulling up IMDb and see if it says that. But this type of movie, I think its time has passed. Or you can still maybe do it, but you have to set it in the 90s or in the early 2000s. In the 2010s, it doesn't flow as well. It's not the era that you can have that. You can still have Russia play an important part. We just had the Russian spy case. Unfortunately, the spy case I think also kind of makes this movie look silly because the spies that they caught, it's not the old KGB. The people they caught never infiltrated anything. I think they infiltrated a Denny's. Pretty much everybody in the intelligence community was laughing at them because it was a big embarrassment for the Russian intelligence community because it was just a really horrible looking operation. And since we're just fresh in our mind, we're kind of thinking, right, Russian spies. If that case, shouldn't Angelina Jolie be wearing a tiara? And that goes to my point. We don't have this Ghost of the Soviet Union. We know what the Russians are. You could have maybe done this as, I don't know, Chinese agents but I guess they probably want to release this in China, so they probably didn't do that. Because, Chinese actually have a credible and very good intelligence service. They've infiltrated, there's been cases in the 90s and the 2000s. I think at one time they caught a Chinese agent in a nuclear laboratory, But we don't like to talk about that. So that's the other big fault in this movie. It's this type of plot. It's been around for a while, but it just doesn't feel right nowadays. You could have probably substituted the Russians in for somebody else, but then it just becomes another Manchurian Candidate, which Liv Schreiber was in as well. I still have a little time on this one, so what else was a big problem? Another big problem I had at the beginning. You know what? Here's the other thing. This in general. Besides the style of this film being the Ghost of the Soviet Union style, or Ghost of the Soviet Union type film, and the fact that it was written for another actor in particular, there's just a ton of plot holes throughout the entire movie that you can easily spot. And that's not a good sign for any film. Stay tuned in part 2. I'm going to get into those.